Episode 31 of the Long Haul Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome once more to our weekly podcast. I'm Nine, as always, joined by my co-host Kerry. How you doing, my man?
Hey, doing okay. How you doing?
Good. It was a very busy day. Things are picking up again, and obviously I haven't had much work in the last few weeks. So to compensate today, I was really busy. So I ran home, got here, and couldn't do the live podcast once again because Valve just the posts come out too late, and then I don't wanna miss any sleep just because of these things. So yeah.
Let me just give a shout out to that sexy shirt.
Oh yeah. It was actually raining. I was actually there. I took out my server shirts, but it was actually raining. So yeah. It was kind of a missed opportunity, but it's fine. It's fine. So what did you think? What did you expect this week's supposed to be about? Let's start off with that.
I always expect the worst and always get these nice gifts that we get. You said you weren't that excited about it. I actually have some. I wouldn't say excited, but it's really. I think it's really cool what they did right here in this with this reveal. The core heroes reworks, in my opinion, look awesome. We'll get to it when we start reading through the thing, but I really like what they did this time.
Yeah,
it's all good news. All good news, no bad news this time.
Yeah. A very what's the word? Can you say uncontroversial or non-controversial post? So a very I think all across the board, a very positive post. I was personally expecting them to kind of go into gold generation, maybe, because people have been talking a lot about that, and since they have been focusing so much around the kind of just the rules and the game mechanics and how the game's gonna work in abstract, I didn't expect them to go towards card previews just yet. I mean, they have been doing card previews anyway, right? But yeah, I guess this week we got a bit of a preview post, if you will.
Just candy. They just gave us candy this turn.
All right. Yeah. So April 27th, the heroes we need. Are they the heroes we want, though? That's the question. Do you wanna start us off this week, man? Or do you wanna?
Yeah. I'll start off with the cool image that they did, and we only got a sneak peek at it at the end. For my first impression when I looked at this was like, "Ooh, new heroes." And then I was like, oh, it's not new heroes. It's like same old heroes. But then I noticed that they're changed. And I was like, ooh, changes. So I like the image. I like that they already assigned in their head, because if you're watching this, you most likely seen this post yesterday. All of the heroes here might end up in the game sooner or later. At the moment, we'll get to give our opinion on it. I was talking with Nine that my first reaction when I looked at this was like, Snapfire is green. Why? Because every time I look at Snapfire, be it Dota, be it Underlords, I see a red card, and they made it green. But then again, like we said, other King folk have been shown other colors. Sniper is black, so let's see what they'll end up showing us for Snapfire.
Yep.
If she gets into the game. So let's just look at the start of the post with this.
Can I just say something? I kind of wish that they would at least sometimes go back to making drawings on paint, because that was kind of awesome.
You like the doodles?
Yeah,
the little doodles.
Yeah, I kind of did. But I also think I haven't played Dota since Snapfire came out, but I believe she's a strength hero, right? So yeah, it also surprises me a little bit that she's under green. But I guess they're trying to make her kind of a more kind of a tankier hero. But
Well, yeah, we'll see what she ends up being if she gets into the game.
yeah, we can
But
discuss
I don't
that
know.
later on anyway.
I'm not much of a lore person, but if you see like the video that they showed on the international, she's like in the middle of mountains and desert, and I don't know. I just associated that to
True.
to to,
Well,
to
yeah,
red.
and she's got a dragon, right? That's kind of her mount is kind of a dragon, right? So that would be also like dragons in general are kind of more red, right? Um, yeah, sure. I could see that. I could see that too. Her ability, though, the cookie thingy, is not really doesn't sound very much like a green ability, though, right? Because it kind
It
of pushes.
depends.
So
She can be a buffer here. I mean, the cookie buffs, right, and green buffs. So I guess.
anyway, let's leave that towards the later end of the discussion because that's going to come down at the end because of the voting thing that they did. If you don't know what we're talking about, you'll discover in a bit. But I suppose most people already know. So basically, what we get this week is that they just talk about a bit the Heroes of Artifact, and because they already showed Debbie last week, they probably felt like they had to show the other basic heroes to just be fair all around. But they start off the post by saying something about their philosophy of designing heroes, and I don't think this is going to be controversial at all, but I think it would be good to go through it. So they say our philosophy this time around is different. So we'd like to go over some of the factors we use when evaluating hero designs. All heroes should have at least one ability. Completely agree. And this is something that I think a lot of people complained. I also felt like abilities were missing, but I always had this theory that it was a core set, if you will, and because of that, I kind of gave them some slack. But I definitely agree that most heroes should have at least one ability now. Then they say you should be excited to draw a hero's signature cards. I mean, it is the fact that these basic heroes had really, for the most part, really shitty cards, right?
Yeah, the four core heroes had pretty boring cards. I guess if you play constructed, Farvern was okayish when it came to signature cards.
I think none of the basic heroes ever saw much constructed play. Basically none. I mean, I had a meme deck with Debbie. Probably Debbie is the one that gets the closest to potentially playing in constructed, but it never really happened. In draft, though, of course, they played a lot in draft, and
you were almost obliged to. Well, not obliged. How do you say? It was like I don't want to say mandatory, because if you picked other cards, you were able to.
It wasn't
to not pick them.
But my overall impression from draft was that in general, the two better heroes to use were Debbie and Farvan. Farvan had the highest win rate from draft heroes, from basic heroes, but people seemed to like Debbie the most. Like I would often see decks with 2, sometimes even 3 Debbies. So I think people liked them a lot. Keith?
Yeah, it was like one was chump blocking and the other one was removal. So when you get a signature card that gets you chump blocking or removal, is always nice.
Yeah.
The other ones weren't that good because of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the blue hero, you would only play it if you really had no other choice. And I think in comparison, the green and black heroes, you would not mind playing them as much. And Keith felt a bit less bad, but it didn't feel good when you had to play Keith. That's my general impression.
Keith was just okay, as it was like a chunky boy, you know. He was like a wall hero. It was good. He was only useful because of that. Because the signature was like 3 wasted slots.
Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of one of these obvious things, right? You want to be excited to draw whatever card is in your deck. If the card doesn't make you excited, either it's because it's not fun or it's because it's not good enough. And if that's the case, then it becomes kind of difficult, right? But it's this thing where they try to balance stronger heroes with worse cards, so to say, which makes sense. But I guess the cards shouldn't be bad enough that it really sucks, that you don't want to draw them. Let's put it like that. So I think I think, all of these points will probably gather consensus. And from what I have seen in the community and Discord and Reddit and so on, I think everyone kind of agrees on this. So the signature cards should avoid being situational. Here, I'm not exactly sure what they mean, because if you think about cards like Gust, for example, from Draw Ranger, cards like even Thunder God's Wrath from Zeus, for example, they were definitely good cards, but you definitely didn't want to play them in every situation. So, but at the same time, like in card games, most cards are situational, right? Like even creeps, like there's a lot of situations where you don't want to play creep.
Yeah.
So
I mean, maybe what they're meaning to say here is they didn't want cards to be like, they want it to be always playable and not something that conditions did not align for you to play it. I don't know how to put this better than, imagine the card says you need to target something in front of Keith, for example, and there's nothing in front of Keith, so you can't play the card. So what I get from this is they didn't want cards to have like conditions that wouldn't allow you to play him at any time.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Because Zeus is a situational card, like you're saying, but you can play at any time, and any hero in any lane will be hit. So you always get a target if there's any active hero.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's at the same time, it's good that they write these things, but these are just so these concepts are so like unspecific. These concepts are so general that at the same time it becomes like saying, I don't know.
But this type of linguistic, the way they wrote it down, and we'll get this to some of the cards below. They said on the first or the second week, I think it was the first week, that they said on the post that they were changing wording on the cards to make it simpler. And then they go and write stuff like this, and we go like, what exactly does this mean, right? And there's some cards below that when we go to them, I'll mention it, because in my opinion, I think they worded the abilities or the card in a way that is confusing, and they could have simplified it. If they want to simplify it, this is not the best way, Evolve, and you'll see that really soon when we get there.
I mean, at the same time, it's like they don't how to put this. They want to share their philosophy with us, but they have to kind of avoid being too particular, because if they are too specific, too particular, saying things that might constrict what they can do later on, you know what I mean? So they have to kind of be careful. So at the same time, it's good that they write these kind of more general thoughts rather than specifying too much, because not that they get stuck in a corner where they promised something and then they have to.
Yeah, it's political business.
Yeah, for sure. So signature cards should generally be at their best when their corresponding hero uses them. This implies probably that they will be introducing some synergy between the cards and the abilities that the heroes will have, and I think there are already some examples in the basic heroes that they show. Bonus, if a hero has a small self synergy, that ties in together, and it's fine to have two abilities on a hero if at least one of them is a passive. So basically saying they want to avoid having more than one active. That's my read on this. So it's unlikely that we're going to see heroes like in Dota with 4 abilities, 3 of which are active or something like that. This probably makes the game too. I don't want to use the word complicated, but maybe makes the game a bit overwhelming if there's too many abilities.
So this is just mainly them saying, for example, we saw Bristleback now has 2 abilities, right? One is passive, the other one is active. Yep. So what they're saying is they're okay with having 2 abilities, which is something that I wish all cards had. Because, come on, heroes have 4 abilities in the game. Sometimes they have even more. And
if you consider the card an ability, and then they will have an active and a passive, it kind of ends up being very similar, because in Dota they have 4, maybe in some cases there's 5 with items and stuff, but feels fine, right? I mean, an active, a passive, and then the signature card kind of theoretically potentially counting as another ability feels good, I guess.
I'd feel perfectly fine if all cards had an active and a passive and 3 signature cards. That would be perfect. Like 5 stars, 10 stars. I mean, we get to see that these heroes have like one card, one ability, be it passive or active. But well, they're core heroes. They did show us Treant and stuff, and he only had one ability, so we know that maybe rare heroes would have like 2 abilities, one passive and one active. That would have been cool and make rare heroes more interesting, for example. But we only saw Bristleback so far having 2 abilities, and I just hope more of them have 2 abilities.
Yeah, completely agree. The other thing I will say probably is that the more abilities and the more things you add to a card, the easier it is to balance the hero. So if you add more stuff to the hero, then you can, if all heroes get stronger because they have more things, first of all, you can probably make all the signature cards a bit stronger, and then you can compensate that not only via stats, because in 1.0 most of the strong cards, of course there are exceptions, but most of the good cards were compensated by a kind of a weaker hero. And now that most heroes will have abilities, you can also compensate the strength of a potential signature card via the power of the abilities, or vice versa. So it just adds, the fact that it adds complexity to the design makes it also kind of easier to spread out the power and even it out and balance it, I think. So yeah, overall, I think feels very good.
Yeah.
And the last point, it's fine to have strong active and passive abilities on the board. They create interesting threats to play around. Sure. Yeah. Again, very unspecific. I mean, but agree. Can agree with the general thought there. So let's take a look at the basic heroes, and let's have a look at how they've changed. Do you wanna introduce Keith?
Okay. So first thing about Keith that takes my attention. Reckless Charge now has like a lightning, which is the new symbol for quick or initiative. I don't remember, and I might be saying something really bad here, but cards that had initiative didn't have the lightning, right, by the mana cost, right? I do not remember them having.
I think they did. Let me check. I remember they said get initiative, but let me check.
Chat, help us out.
Arcane Assault, let me check. I think they did.
JCRN said it didn't. Dorby says they had.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did.
They did?
Yeah.
So I was actually thinking it was like an interesting extra to look at your cards without needing to open them up and see if they had initiative. Okay. So
no, that already existed. Yeah, I just checked. Yeah. So what I will say, what I've heard, I was just listening to a podcast on the way to work, and I was Sun's fan was talking about, because he was in the beta, and apparently this was the keyword for initiative in the beta. At some point in the beta, apparently they changed the initiative card or keyword from quick to get initiative, and now they are turning it back. So maybe
back to basics.
Maybe some speculation, but probably someone in the team said, nope, let's change this. We want to get rid of quick and we want to call it get initiative. I don't know if anyone in chat was in the beta to confirm, but that's what I heard. So an interesting tidbit. Yeah. So
signature card, 2 mana, swap caster to a neighboring position, it taunts and gives you initiative for, I'm going to keep calling it initiative because I don't like quick, but everyone will understand it anyways. So just it's evolving backwards. Exactly. Red card that allows you to change a hero to another neighboring position. So they said if it'd be cool if the signature cards are more impactful on
the cast on the
hero, on the hero itself. I don't see any synergy on Keith himself.
But it does because of his active. So
Oh, okay, because it taunts,
Yeah,
but you
but
still need to use his own ability for it. Yeah, okay. Duh.
I
Okay.
so I think the most important thing here is that his active ability is called "Stop Hitting Yourself."
So you just make three targets fight themselves. Okay,
Yeah. So if he uses the card with his active ability out of cooldown, yeah. So if there's three enemies, presumably they will all attack Keith, and then you keep initiative, so you can use the ability straight away. Of course, you will need 3 mana to do that, which now is more than it used to be. But then they will fight themselves, so they will hit themselves.
So it's pretty. So the logic to getting the initiative here is just so you can use your own. Stop hitting yourself after you play the card.
Yeah.
So I wonder if when cards start playing the game, they'll start to cool down, or if they'll be able to just play it. Because Artifact 1.0, you'd start with the cooldown. It was on a cooldown as soon as the game started.
So I think that's one of the biggest questions that I've seen people asking around. But at the same time, imagine that if they all would come down without cooldowns, it sounds kind of OP. So I doubt that is going to be the case, but they for sure haven't, and they've had multiple opportunities now to confirm that, and they haven't yet. So that's something that they probably ought to clarify in the coming posts. Really would be important to know if that's the case.
So we're starting with 3 mana. That means you can only do this with 6 mana, most likely, right? Because if it starts with 3 cooldowns, only when you get to 6 mana will you be able to, if it acts like Artifact 0.1.
Yeah, it should be. So yeah, something I want to point out is that it swaps the caster to the neighboring position, so left or right, presumably, right? This is already the second red cards that we see with mobility. Already Timbersaw could use his hook to move 5 slots to either side.
And you could change lanes.
Yeah, and so for me this is interesting because, first of all, swapping a caster to a neighboring position, does that allow him to switch lanes? I think that's an interesting thought. I presume not, because I think it would be probably very strong, but it would be nice to know that. And
I think they would have that written down, because on Timbersaw you actually get it written that you can change lanes. This one doesn't.
Is it written? I thought they had to make a Reddit post to confirm that. But whatever, I don't want to go check.
I'll go check. You keep going.
Yeah, but the other thing that I wanted to point out is red didn't have any mobility. I think the only cards that actually allowed red to have some sort of mobility between commas, if you will, was Spring the Trap. I guess Primal Roar in a way, but that's for the opponent, not for your own cards. There was no way to move red cards around except for items. So in a very small amount of cards that they have shown the community until now, we already see 2 red cards that can move around. And I believe this presumably means that most colors are going to be able to move around, because of all the colors, I imagine red would be the least mobile one, right? Because it's the big, beefy, heavy dudes. And those dudes generally should have less mobility. So I want to speculate here and say that all colors are going to have a lot of mobility options when 2.0 comes out, because this to me hints a little bit at that.
This is pretty cool, because this will make all those boring cards that we used to have on Artifact 1.0, for example, change the arrows for this guy, or point that, or taunt this. Now you actually get this inside the own hero.
Yep.
And I just hope that I wouldn't say remove all those cards, because when you play draft, you need filler crappy cards. But it would be nice to not have signature cards or built-in abilities from heroes on other cards. For example, the Jimui card, the signature card, old card, used to be to swap your targeting, right? And then you had 2 or 3 other cards in blue that would do that. So his signature card was pretty much bleh.
For sure. And I think the last thing I want to mention here quickly for Keith is that, I mean, obviously his stats are reduced, and they note in the text that his health was recently increased and might be a bit too high. But this dude is a unit, dude. Man, Bristleback was reduced to a 4/5, if memory serves me right, and this dude is a 3/8. What? Like this guy's like comparatively well statted, like really well statted.
He's too beefy. He's too beefy.
He looks really too beefy. And then when you compare, we saw Debbie, the black basic hero, and Debbie is a 4/3. This dude is a 3/8. It's like, what the hell? Okay, Debbie can scale a bit because she's got the new ability when you hit the tower, she gains armor and etc. So she can theoretically kind of scale up a little bit, and probably she's slightly nerfed because of that. But 3/8 feels really beefy, I'm gonna say.
I mean, so when you look at the Artifact 1.0 and you look at heroes, every time you look at the core hero, you would never consider them to put them inside a deck. What I see here is like, I look at Keith, of course, we don't know all the other heroes right now, but looking at Keith for a core hero, he has potential to see constructed. I mean, you look at his stats, a 3/8 that actually can make 3 creatures or 3 heroes fight, like hit themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Also gives you initiative. I don't know, man. For a core hero, he looks really, really strong, and if the stats stay, I think he might actually see constructed.
His active ability is definitely at his strongest against black, because black heroes in general have higher strength or power than they do resistance. So presumably, if you use stop hitting yourself onto a black lane, I suppose most of the targets are going to kill themselves. Although against green and blue, it seems relatively weaker. So I don't know. I mean, it looks well statted. It's really difficult to assess right now, but they still call it a basic hero. So presumably it's going to be used more in draft. I don't know. We'll have to. I mean, it's really impossible to assess if a card is constructed playable without really looking at the other cards, right? It's possible. I'm not overly excited, but I think this card probably is going to earn some play in Limited for sure. I don't think you're going to mind too much. If the card stays like this, I don't think you're going to mind playing it in draft at all. But
he might go down he might go down to 3/6 or 3/7, maybe 3/6.
Yeah, 3/6 would probably still be good. Yeah. All right, so moving on to Farvan the Dreamer, one of the favorite basic heroes. He's been statted down to a 3/5 with a passive ability or continuous effect, as they call it, Pack Leadership, +1 attack for each ally in the lane. His signature card is Prowler Vanguard, so similar to what it was before, costed at 4 mana, a creep, with an aura. I believe aura is a new keyword as well. Prowler Vanguard's neighbors have +1 armor, and he's a 2/4. He used to be a 0/6. But obviously with a mana reduction now he feels much more expensive, but still pretty decent. But I really like his passive. This is going to be really good in draft as well. Might even potentially be good in constructed as well, like, because if you have a lane full, he's going to be an 8/5. 8/5 is really strong.
And even on the first turn, he's a 4/5, because you always have a creep spawning on each lane. So he's always a 4/5 until the creep dies. So he looks really strong for a green hero.
Yeah. Again, this kind of I have to wrap my head around this. Like, it's so weird to see Farvan statted similarly to Bristleback. I think Bristleback is just a little guy now.
Okay, first key wording here. We all expected allies means any creature, right? Be it a minion, be it a creep, be it a hero. So he's always going to be. I think he will trade almost every other hero that isn't like Keith or probably red because they seem to have a lot of HP. But if you first turn, if you play a creep on the same lane that Farvern is, for example, he's going to be a 5/5. That's just insane.
Yeah,
For a green hero.
just in terms of numbers, the green and red heroes feel still chunkier, but I think overall it looks more balanced than it was in 1.0. I mean, comparatively, the blue and black heroes have kind of less stats. The black heroes, understandably so, because power is generally considered to be worth more. And you could tell that by looking at the gold cost of power items versus the gold cost of resistance items. For example, like resistance or HP was comparatively cheaper in comparison to power. But I think now when we look at the basic heroes across the board, they look much more similarly statted. And I would say most of them actually trade with each other, which is weird because even Jamui can trade with other heroes pretty regularly. It's gonna look like, but we don't know if this is gonna be the final stats anyway.
And can you imagine this? There's new hope for Ricks now. If they're doing this, the cards that were okay. Can you imagine Ricks can actually be really good now?
Well, some people already think that Rix is good, but I'll say they are not in the majority. So, yeah. What else? What else to say here? Not much. They say that maybe the Prowler Vanguard is gonna be decreased to 3 mana because he feels a little bit too expensive.
I mean, a 2/4 that gives 1 armor to every neighbor. Does it actually feel that expensive to cost 4 mana?
I think in draft for sure not. In constructed, yes. Because the thing here is, if you want to play the Prowler Vanguard, you're gonna have to completely waste your second round and not do anything else, including playing items or abilities or so. It's really right now. It's really difficult to gauge, to have a feeling for how much mana is worth, right? And I mean, we've talked about this before. I think that the scaling down of the power of the stats and the scaling down of the mana makes assessing cards much harder. And I will also say it makes balancing the cards in terms of stats harder as well, because now, you know, if you increase a stat by 1 in terms of percentage, it's a much bigger change in percentage than it used to be in 1.0. So it becomes a bit harder to assess.
Do you feel that people at like first turns will this might sound weird, but fight for not having initiative? Because if you have like 5 mana, 4 mana for 3 lanes, the first person that does that gets to play first is going to get a handicap.
Yeah,
because
I definitely feel like that.
Yeah, I feel that on Artifact 1.0, everyone wanted to have initiative the most times that they could have it. And now if you have like 4 mana for 3 lanes, and you can only play like 1 or 2 cards tops, first guy playing will be at a disadvantage. So it's going to be interesting to see if people are actually going to play smart, not play smart, but play in a way that they don't want to have initiative. They want to play reactively and not proactively.
In 1.0, there was less of a problem in draft, but in constructed, depending a lot on the deck that you were playing, you wanted to play active or reactive. That was really noticeable, for example, in black decks. Black decks, for example, wanted to have initiative all the time throughout most of the game. And red decks, for example, they wanted to play reactive in the first turns. They wanted to play a creep knowing that you could already not kill the creep, or that you could not threaten that creep before combat would happen. So, for example, red decks would generally want to not have initiative in the beginning of the game. Also, it's matchup dependent, but they would often want to play reactive at the beginning, and then late game they would want to keep the initiative for the TOTs and the primal roars and so on. Now I feel a bit like you just described. I feel like you're not going to want initiative for for probably a vast percentage of the game. This is completely speculative, impossible to know without playing the game. But even in the later games, if you're wanting to play Annihilation, or if you're wanting to play Chain Frost or a big spell, I don't feel like you're going to be wanting to open with that spell, because unless it's ultra late game and you've gotten to 15 mana, where it doesn't really matter anymore and you can follow up the big spell with something else, I think unless it's that ultra late game stage, I don't think you're going to want to open, because you open and then you affect one lane, you blow a lane up with a Chain Frost, or you make some big effect on the lane, but then your opponent's just going to jump in and mitigate that damage. So it's like you say, I feel like initiative is going to play a much lesser role, but this is all just gut feeling. It's really not possible to know. Eh?
Maybe they put initiative as in like combo cards, you know. Because the way I see it, the way we just talked about Keef or Keefy or whatever they call it, it's it just feels like you want to play initiative for combos and not for starting the play on the next turn. Because if mana is so restricted right now, well, we're talking this, and I'm still curious in how they're going to rework the Salamani,
sure. Mana refreshing abilities.
Yeah, because if they're cross lane, it's going to be completely bonkers, and it's going to make blue completely insane. Because everyone will want to play blue, it's so refreshing abilities. Yep. You had the doggy, the blue dog. I don't know the name of the chick. Like,
kind of.
No. There's a minion, a blue minion that has an ability that refreshes your mana in that lane.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember the name either.
Something magician, I think. There's that card. There's the temples. There's the
Satyr. It's a Satyr magician.
Yeah, the Satyr magician. So I don't know how that's going to affect lanes, or if it's going to be cross lane, or if the cards are going to be completely reworked and they're going to remove that type of mechanic. But I just feel like initiative, from what they've shown us, might work more of playing a combo instead of getting to be the first to play the next turn.
I actually like that argument a lot, because now that I'm thinking, for example, about Bristleback, where he has the Quill Spray ability thing, and maybe once we start to see more abilities on the heroes, we will realize that you can combo abilities. Like if a hero has an ability to damage one of your own units, for example, you could activate that to activate the Quill Spray and then do some sort of chain effect with abilities. I guess that's possible. I mean, I'm obviously super biased because I've played 1.0 so much that I still kind of see a lot of the plays through the lens of 1.0. But it is true, maybe if there's like a lot of cool abilities on the board, it becomes less about having initiative for a big spell like it was in 1.0, and it becomes more about having initiative to play a bunch of tiny spells or something like that. But at the same time, if you have to pass initiative a bunch of times to make a combo, does it really matter if you go first or not? It's difficult to know, right? Good. Yeah, that went away from the path of the basic heroes. So let's go on to progress on to the last basic hero that we have not seen. This is Jamui the Wise. Active ability, Wisdom of the Elders. I actually don't know what the ability was called in the first one. I suppose it's the same name. So active ability, 4-round cooldown, 1 mana. Draw a card, reduce cooldown by 1, but not below 1. Which this was basically the keyword that was added to Lion in the one of the last patches, which was Quicken, right? It was called Quicken.
Yeah, but now they want to use quick, so they're not going to call it quickening anymore because it's going to be confusing.
Exactly. Exactly. There's going to be more text on the cards, but whatever. Yeah, I'm still not completely sold on the renaming of the stuff, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. This is still early stages. So Jamui's spell, which used to be that shitty arrow redirection spell, now is 2 mana spell called Runic Instigation. Refresh all cooldowns on one of your units. I mean, you were just talking about combos. This is potentially a card to enable combos. This could very easily enable combos. Imagine if there's an ability that gives you mana, for example. If a hero gives you mana, if you have an ability of a hero that gives you 3 mana, okay, that would be completely broken. I don't think you can.
Crystal Maiden's passive, for example.
But that doesn't need refresh because it's not an active, right? So I guess if you play Runic Instigation with a CM,
isn't Crystal Maiden give you 1 mana back or something like that?
The first spell you play with CM, you get 2 mana back. So it would basically cost 0.
Yeah.
But yeah, this looks to me like a very playable constructed card. I'm not sure about the stats. 2/6. I guess he survives a Bristleback, which he didn't. He survives Debbie, which he didn't. He survives a bunch of stuff that he didn't. So, like I was saying before, I think the blue creeps and heroes that we've seen so far look like they're much better in terms of stats.
If you look at this on Artifact 1.0, he would die to almost everything, and his stats were really low on health. Now he has like the same or more health as a green hero, as a red hero, except for Kifi has 8, but Bristleback is a 4/5. And I mean, compared to the scaling that was done, he got buffed like considerably.
Yep.
Even if his attack is not that great, his survivability is like 2 or 3 times better.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, okay, his attack I think was 3, and it got pushed down to 2. But I think something important to say is that creeps are 1/1s now. So, how to put this? It's a complicated argument. If he ever faces a creep, he's going to kill the creep in 1 hit, which he didn't before. Okay. On the other hand, creeps spawn on the left, so it's unlikely that this guy is going to be hitting a lot of creeps. So I don't know, but I feel like overall, from what we've seen until now, blue heroes are like in a good spot from their overall stats and abilities and so on. Not that blue needed much of a help. It was one of the best colors in 1.0. It was like mono blue was the best deck throughout a long period of the long haul. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, like JC Orion was saying, like Jimui was a 3/8, but yeah, like Nine said, he would die to Bristleback, he would die to Debbie, and now he gets to survive everything. So he's pretty much compared to the stats crunch, he's much better now.
Yeah, and like Matthew is also saying that he notices that they made it so nothing one-shots anything anymore. And I also noticed it. And the fact is, if that's true, if that's really going to be the way that this is going to play out, if you notice a hero like Farvan or something, he will trade with most heroes in 2 hits. And if black heroes are not killing in 1 hit and they are dying to green, and like because Debbie, for example, doesn't kill Jamui and trades after a couple of hits, so this is a really relative buff to Jamui. Jamui now doesn't die to the black basic hero, and he trades in the next round. So yeah, I mean, sure, bounty hunter 1-shots, like people are obviously already pointing out, but there will obviously be exceptions to that, but just analyzing the basic heroes, because the basic heroes are the flavor of the colors, or should be, right? They represent their color. So they should be like the basic groundwork for what their colors are going to be. And if that's the case, blue heroes are going to trade with black heroes. And that is a huge buff to blue. Interestingly, it also says that you can refresh on units. So they say in the text you can also refresh creeps. So you could refresh, like if you've got Emissary of the Quorum, the creep that buffs everything, you could potentially do it twice. Obviously, abilities now cost mana, so I'm assuming that creep abilities also cost mana. I don't think we've seen any creep with abilities, have we? I don't believe so.
I think there's one. Might be. Let me check. No, well, not abilities that just deploy stuff. You mean, the little Grievel that makes the.
Sure, but I meant active abilities. We don't know yet if creeps active abilities also cost mana to use or not. Like, for example, you were saying the Satyr Magician that refreshes your mana. I wonder if now that costs 1 mana to activate, you know?
I mean, I'm looking at the Morphling Whelp and the Defenestrating Ogre, and they all just say play effect. So they're all cards that affect something when they
I don't think they've shown us any creep activated abilities yet. So yeah, a bit more room for speculation there, I guess, as well. And yeah, they say Jamui is a pretty hefty hero for a blue hero, giving you good deployment options. But obviously, again, these are the basic heroes. We still haven't seen the heavy hitters. We will see that probably pretty soon, I imagine, because it doesn't look like Valve is reluctant to showing us cards. And not only are they not reluctant to show us cards, but now they want us to choose the next card. They say our feedback alias also had many requests for new heroes. We hashed out a few designs based on these requests, and we figured that we would let you decide which one to add next, basically. So here's a list of 1 hero for every color, and those are the 4 heroes that you see represented right at the top of this post: Nyx Assassin, Arc Warden, Huskar, and Snapfire. Before we see what they do, I want to know which one's your favorite.
Okay, so I still defend here that Snapfire is green because they had to make Huskar red, and they chose these 4 heroes, so they had to make Snapfire green.
So I deduce you're not voting for Snapfire.
No, I'm not voting for Snapfire. Okay, so I'm divided between Arc Warden and Nyx Assassin.
Yeah, this seems to be the 2 most popular ones from what I've seen until now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My biggest concern here is they don't actually tell you the ability, so I have no idea what the hell I'm voting for.
Speculation time, bro.
Yeah, I might be voting for something completely stupid broken, or I might be voting for something completely boring to play or just weak. Arc Warden, we know it's known for shenanigans and doing that annoying stuff that he does, be it Dota or be it Overlords, especially Overlords, the memes in Overlords. But I think I'd most likely gonna vote for Arc Warden. I like Nyx Assassin, but I really hate playing against Nyx Assassin in Dota. So I think I'm gonna vote for Arc Warden here.
Yeah, so for those of you that are not haven't played Dota or are not familiar with the heroes, basically what Arc Warden does is similar to Meepo. He creates a clone. The biggest difference is that when one of your Meepos dies, they all die, and Arc Warden doesn't. So if your clone is basically a copy of your hero, and if he dies, they don't both die. It's just the copy dies. So that's like pretty big if that comes out, and that's obviously the Tempest Double active ability. And the Spark Wraith, I believe it just leaves like a phantom, like a ghost on the floor, and if you come close to it, it explodes and deals damage. I looked at this and I took like 5 seconds to look at the abilities. Man, Huskar is boring as fuck. What does he do? All he does is jump and hit something until it's dead. Come on, give me a break. Snapfire.
We know he's gonna do. If he's gonna act like he does on Dota, it's just his ability is gonna go like reduce your HP to half and your target's HP to half, and you get regeneration like 4 or something, right? He's gonna get something like that. So
it's gonna be really boring. So screw Huskar, basically, is what I'm saying here. Snapfire. I'm also confused why she's in green. Like I was actually curious about the Snapfire cookie ability, because it's probably going to be some type of mobility thing, because that's what it does in the game. Maybe it's some sort of alternative buff, but I'm just gonna forget about Snapfire because I don't want to vote for a green hero. I considered the Arc Warden, but then as soon as I came to Nyx Assassin Black and it says active Vendetta. Now, if you've played Dota and you know what the Nyx assassin does, when you activate the Vendetta button, your hero goes invisible and he goes off in the map to hunt someone to assassinate.
Lovely. Because we didn't have enough assassination heroes.
Yes.
Let's vote for another hero that one-shots you. Yay, let's go.
And then when he hits with a crit. So, I mean, for me, the exciting thing here is invisibility. I don't give a crap if he's gonna kill someone or get a buff on his attack or whatever. I saw that and I say, invisibility, yes, please. And I voted. It took me 5 seconds to vote. So basically what I'm saying, guys, if you want to be cool, you vote for Nyx, okay? That's basically what I'm saying. I ran to Reddit and I made a thread and it said, come on, guys, vote for Nyx.
I mean, so you can't just go for one ability. I mean, you need to see it as one, okay? So if you look at Spike Carapace, I mean, what's it going to do? If you get attacked this turn, you stun your opponent or something. This might be a broken hero, man. You can't vote for this.
It's done, man. I cannot take it back. And I cannot vote again. So it's like I told you, I was in bed as the post came out. I very quickly scrolled through this and I said, ooh, Vendetta? Yes, please, give it to me. So now, basically, what I want to say here, straight up, is if Nyx wins and they don't implement invisibility, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be really mad. I don't care how they're gonna implement it, dude. I don't care if it's going to be balanced. I just want to see the hero go invisible. That's all I want.
Everyone hates playing against invisibility. I mean, look at they did not give Bounty Hunter invisibility because they knew it was a bad thing to do. They cannot introduce invisibility now because after this, it's going to get clinks, and you don't want to get clinks on the game. Let's go.
Well, people have been calling for trap cards on Reddit. Like, okay, Reddit has been calling out for basically anything. But anyway, I mean, maybe you could organize some sort of trap card, or you could just maybe make it a mobility, like a leap from Mirana, except your opponent doesn't know where he leaps until combat, or some sort of weird thing. I don't care how you do it, just do it and vote Nyx.
I was looking at blue at Work Warden and thinking, I mean, Work Warden is a good blue hero most likely, and blue needs all the help it can get. And then I was like, wait, blue heroes are pretty good if you look at Luna and look at Zeus and stuff. And then I remembered that Luna passive ability was doing 1 damage, right? The piercing damage.
Yeah.
And then I was like, can you imagine now you can play help me.
Eclipse?
Bristleback. You can play Bristleback on the first lane if someone puts Luna, it can act as a counter to Luna.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. I'm more excited about activating the Bristleback's ability myself and shotgunning Quill Spray, but yeah.
Shotgunning Quill Spray. Yeah, you'd need to spend mana on doing damage to your own Bristleback.
I mean, it would be totally worth it. I don't even care if you would die. Imagine activating Quill Spray 5 times, man.
Painful.
All right. Yeah, Ask is chatting. Chat is asking, what do you guys think of ability cooldowns? Quill Spray on a 3-turn CD seems terrible. We've been talking about this on our Discord a little bit, and it feels like the standard for cooldown is going to be 3 or 4. And they have said that the game is going to be longer in terms of overall number of rounds. So I presume that basically because the game's going to go longer, they have to have longer cooldowns. I was looking at my own stats recently, and I saw that on average, my artifact games have 7 rounds. So you make of that information whatever you want, but if games are going to be now 10, 11 rounds, a 3-round cooldown seems probably fine because it's going to activate maybe 3 times per game, 2-3 times maybe. So if you have 5 heroes with abilities activating twice, that's actually a lot of shit activating, man.
Not just that, he might be a card that is played like a counter. For example, I just gave you Luna. She plays Eclipse in your lane, every time you get a hit, it's 1 damage, and you quill spray and kill mostly everything. If you get hits like twice or 3 times, if you play Zeus a signature card and he does 4 damage, you might get like you might not be expecting to clear a lane with that. I don't know. If you have ways to do damage to your own card like that, it's just
Yeah,
we think 3 turns cooldown is too much for 1 damage, but we still don't know what cards are coming and
yeah,
if
exactly.
it's balanced or not. So even though I like the ability, and maybe 3 turns might be harsh, we do not know the combos that might happen and why it's balanced that way.
For sure. Yeah. So that's this week's post, basically. They say that they're gonna get working on some more of that sweet temp art for whichever hero wins. So yeah, hashtag Nix. Go team Nix. Let's go. Let's make it happen, guys. There's still a couple of days to vote. So yeah, just make sure you vote for Nix.
I wonder how many fake accounts you're gonna make, how many fake IPs you're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Just
gonna.
the word next.
Oh man, I'm sure that's gonna happen. Isn't that gonna be sad? I'm wondering how many
I'll,
people are gonna vote actually.
I'll give you that. That Nyx has like the coolest lines.
Yeah,
And,
Nix is
and
pretty cool.
there's banter inside the game, so
And
it might be fun.
apparently, the people who enjoy lore were saying that it might actually have pretty cool lore. I don't know personally. I just read some stuff. All right.
Yeah, that what they're saying on chat is actually important. The next thing that you wanted to see money generation stuff. I'm actually super curious about how the shop is going to work. So Rules Cruise is also saying shop, because these changes are. This is going to be really important on how the shop is going to
For
work.
sure. I want to see ideally next week how gold generation works first, and then obviously tied in with that, I want to see how the shop is going to work, and then hopefully the following week they can explain about the items, if we are going to maintain the same slots and etc.
So when you say gold generation, what's your doubts in this? So you kill the creep, you get 1 gold. You kill the hero, you get 3 gold. You think they're going to change that?
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to change that, because now 3 creeps deploy instead of 2, which means it's an automatic buff to gold generation, right? Because there's 1 more creep every round coming into the game, and not only that, but because the creeps face each other, presumably, unless you play anything to affect that, both players are going to be generating at least 3 gold every round. So there's an automatic rule set change to the gold generation that presumably that will affect how the gold generation graph is going to look throughout the game, right? Because you're going to generate gold faster and more consistently than you did in the first game. So presumably that could affect the costs of items. But since we don't even know how the shop's going to work, I don't know if they are going to counterbalance that with how much gold the heroes give or whatever.
A lot of stuff can happen with that. We can expect that at least 2 creeps will die in each lane. On two lanes will lose creeps. I mean, first turn you get to play with like 1 card, maybe 2 tops, whatever. But we can expect that creeps will trade. At least in 2 lanes, you might try to put another creep that gives armor or something that protects one of the creeps to deny 1 gold to your opponent. So if you get 3 gold at least, that means everyone gets to buy an item or something like if we look at or close to that. So that actually, I mean, didn't it annoy you when you were playing and you could only get an item for like 2nd or 3rd turn because you'd get bad RNG on the creeps, or your heroes would get slammed by other heroes? So if they're trying to give us the chance to everyone to get an item or almost an item on 1 turn, that would also be pretty sweet.
Yeah, and the other thing...
We did see that the sheep stick costs 25. So if you get 3 gold per turn, or if they're planning to give each player three gold per turn by suiciding creeps against creeps, that might make items more expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the same time, Sheepstick costs 25, and 25 were the highest items in the game. So Horn of the Alpha and Niktasha's Guard, those were the most expensive items in the game. So by making Sheepstick 25 plus 1 mana to play and plus 1 mana to activate, they are kind of telling us that the late game items probably will remain the same. So I don't know. I don't know. And the other point to make that Ruse is pointing out in chat is also that is a very good point, is that creeps actually die in the first round, where they didn't really. Creeps would kill themselves in round 2 in terms of natural creep on creep combat. In 1.0 they would die in round 2. So now not only do you get an overall buff, you also start generating it from presumably round 1. So like you say, probably... Yeah, probably, like you say, probably this will allow people to buy items more consistently on round 1. But we need to know more to really make some sort of a better assessment for this, I think. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think it would be really cool to see them drop gold and shop article next round. And then, yeah, there's still more things that, of course, we want to know. But I think for now, that's probably the biggest question in the community's mind, I would presume. All right, so I think we're just reaching on an hour, which is a pretty nice length for the episode. So I think unless you have any other notes or points you want to touch on, we'd probably just leave it at that for today. Sounds good.
Vote for our quarter.
Yeah. Hashtag vote for next case. Exactly. This is going to be interesting. So voting is, like they say, up until this Thursday, which is after tomorrow. So do vote, guys. I'm very curious to see if they tell us how many people voted. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us in chat. Thanks for listening on audio, and thanks for watching on YouTube. We're just about reaching 200 subscribers on YouTube, so that's pretty cool for me. Yeah, we'll be happy if you support us. If you want to chat to us, join our Discord. Otherwise, peace, have a good week, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, guys.
See you guys next week, man.